Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be discussing and breaking down the entire UFC card this weekend, headlined by Robert Whittaker and Reiner de Ritter. We're going to be making a prediction on each fight of the card, starting with the early prelim opener. We got Martin Buday versus Marcus Buchecha. This is actually kind of a banger, especially for the UFC heavyweight division, which is in its absolute worst form right now. But this is a very fun fight. This is Marcus Buchecha's first fight in the UFC. If you don't know him, he's a very world-renowned BJJ athlete. He's fantastic in jiu-jitsu. If you look at his record, it's something like 100 wins and 10 losses or something like that. But he's absolutely phenomenal. And this is a pretty good starting matchup. Martin Buday is not the most exciting fighter. He's not very hype either. But he's got a pretty good record in the UFC. I think it's around 6-1. He's ranked at around the 13th spot in the heavyweight division. So it's sort of a good entry matchup for Marcus Buchecha to see where he's at in his career. People are talking like Marcus like he's an otherworldly destroyer, which is not really the case. He's very good, don't get me wrong, and his grappling, of course, is going to be the best in the division. He looks very juicy as well. I'm sure he's been on some stuff earlier in his career. But Buchecha has only faced very low-level opponents, especially in one, apart from Rug, which is the only guy he lost to. In that fight, Marcus really pushed for the submission very early and gassed out. It was a very fun fight between the two of them, but you can't really do that against Martin Buday. I don't think that you're running the risk of getting finished if you do that, but he is a decent fighter and he'll be able to outwork Marcus Buchecha if he cannot get that submission in the first round. But the thing is that when you look at Martin Buday, you may think of him, if you haven't seen him fight, if you just base him off UFC record and just looking at his record face value and seeing that he trains with Tom Aspinall, you would think he's actually pretty good. He's 6-1 in the UFC, and you don't really see any of his bad. If you don't watch his fights, you don't see any bad performances. But when you watch them, they're very underwhelming. Especially the fights against Josh Parisian. If you squint really hard in that fight, you just see Tom Segura and Bert Chrysler fighting against each other. But both him and Parisian were terribly out of shape, and they just didn't look very skilled in that fight. And when you look at the names of his wins, his 6 wins in the UFC, or even the fighters he's fought against, he had his last fight out against Uran Satiboldeyev, who was making his debut in the UFC. He had a draw against Andrei Arlovsky this fight before. In 2023, Arlovsky's 45 years old and went to a decision. He had a TKO loss against Shamil Gaziev before then, a sub-win over Josh Parisian, a decision over Jake Collier, a decision over Lucas Brzeski, and a decision over Chris Barnett. If you look at a 6-1 record in the UFC, you think it's pretty impressive, but then you hear those names and you're like, yeah, I could probably pick Marcus Buchecha to beat all of those guys, including Shamil Gaziev. So I just don't think Buday has done anything impressive enough for me to think that he's going to beat an impressive guy like Buchecha. I think Buchecha won't gas out. I think he's going to get the submission in the first round. But if he does make it out of the first round, live bet everything on Martin Buday, because Buchecha's cardio, I think, is always going to be sus, from the way that he fights especially. Moving on to the next one, we've got Muhammad Yahya versus Steve Nguyen. Yahya seems to kind of only appear when the UFC needs a local guy in the Middle East to put out a performance for them. But he's had a historically terrible run in the UFC. He lost to Trevor Peek, he lost to Coway Fernandez. And although I think Steven's not going to be a top contender, I think he would beat a Trevor Peek. And he's faced some decent enough opposition. So I'm going to be picking Stephen Nguyen by a decision in this one. Moving on to the next one, though, we've got Ibo Aslan versus Billy Elikana. This is a very close fight between the two of them. I'm going to be picking Billy Elikana at this one. There's always a chance that Ibo can get that KO on him, but he is very powerful, but I don't think he's got a massive level of skill. Whereas Elikana showed in that first round against Bogdan Guskov that he looked really good. He came up in weight, short notice, and he still put out a good performance. He only really lost that fight because he gassed out in the second round, which isn't a good look, to be fair. But he looked really slick in the first round. He was able to outpoint Guskov sort of in that first round. And in a tit-for-tat striking battle between the two of them, I think he's going to be able to 3-1 Ibo Aslan. Ibo's not very active on the feet. He's quite powerful, but he's over-reliant on that power. And if he's not able to KO Billy Elikana in that first round, then I think Elikana, he'll have some newfound cardio and he'll be able to sort of just outpoint Ibo Aslan on the feet for the first 2 rounds. So I'm going to be picking him for the last 2 rounds. I'm going to pick Elikana by decision. Moving on to the next one, we've got Amanda Ribas versus Tabitha Ritchie. I'm going to be picking Tabitha Ritchie by yet another robbery. I don't know if this one's going to be a massive robbery. I think it's going to be a close decision. But I think that she's going to get out-damaged but do way more control in this fight. It's crazy to pick a robbery, but I think that that's the safest way you pick a Tabitha Ritchie fight. It's literally her whole career in a nutshell. Credit, she's very technical. She's a very good fighter. She can win rounds with the takedown. She's quite smart out there. And the thing is that I think that in this fight, Ribas just always struggles with her takedown defense, and she plays bottom way too much. Tabitha's got good control on top. She's got good takedown defense. She doesn't struggle usually to get takedowns. She's quite physical out there. She's good at holding you against the cage. And I think in this fight that she's going to be able to take down Amanda Ribas, but Ribas is just going to play that bottom position too much, try to do her sweeps, just cooking the clock a bit too much, and I think she'll lose to a close decision, but it'll be sort of like an out grappled decision in this one. Tabitha's way stronger than Ritchie. Tabitha's way stronger than Ribas. She's a much more physical fighter. She's good on the cage. She's good with her takedown. She gets the takedowns late in the rounds, and she knows how to win. So I'm going to definitely pick her by a 29-28 close decision. Moving on, we've got Davey Grant versus Damon Blackshear. Sadly, I'm going to be going with Damon Blackshear. I think Davey's got a good shot, but at 40 years old, he's been in so many wars. I just can't pick him to win this fight. Damon's been on a tear at the moment since his loss to Montel Jackson. He's been super active over the last 3 years. I think it's something like 10 fights in 3 years. And Damon has shown very suspect cardio, but I'm sure at 40 years old, Davey's going to be the same. I think Davey's going to make it very close in the first round. He's going to be nice and explosive. But in those second and third rounds, they're just going to be way too close. I think Damon's going to be out physicalitying him, out speeding him in this fight. And I think he's going to make a close decision for 29-28. Moving on to the next one, we've got Muslim Salikov versus Carlos Leal. I'll be picking Carlos Leal by first round KO. I was a bit sad about the matchmaking, but I get it. I really do get it. I think that Muslim Salikov, he just got a beautiful first round KO against Song Kanan, so they're obviously going to use that name to propel Carlos Leal. But before telling you why I think Leal's going to win, I'm just going to say his defense style and his leaning back constantly is really bad against a guy like Salikov. A guy like Salikov who can throw out a bunch of spinning wheel kicks. He can throw a nice head kick up there. If this was Muslim 5 years ago, I'm going to pick him in this fight, maybe be a closer fight. But the big thing is that nowadays, now that Muslim's about 41 years old, when he attacks, it still looks really good. But his defense has really aged. He moves back very slowly. If you watch his fight even against Song Kanan, who I don't think is that fast, Song was able to back him up and he was able to make him a jitterbug. He was able to make Muslim Salikov shell up in the fight. And the thing is that Muslim's boxing has never been that good. Leal's got very heavy hands in the boxing. But he's got sort of bad defense, and I will say sort of bad head movement just because his hands are low and he's constantly swaying. But he's got unrelenting pressure. He throws every shot with 100%. He's a very good grappler, and he showed that against Renat, especially a counter grappler. And he even took down Renat in that last round. I think he's going to take down Muslim Salikov in this fight just because Muslim really pushes forward. He doesn't always have his feet under him. And when he's moving backwards, he's all hobbly and cobbly. So I think that, honestly, I think that Carlos Leal is going to know that Muslim's going to present some issues on the feet. So he's going to shoot an early takedown. Or he's just going to put Muslim into a phone booth and KO him flat whilst Muslim's moving backwards. But I really do also see a ground and pound KO just because Carlos Leal has got deceptively good grappling. Moving on to the next one, we've got Bryce Mitchell versus Said Nurmagomedov. This is a very tough prediction for this one, but I will be going with Bryce Mitchell. It's a really weird one to pick this one as well, just because I think that after Bryce Mitchell's last fight, I saw that he hasn't really been improving as much as he could have. I think that small gym in Arkansas is not doing him that much for his evolution as a fighter. But saying that, Said gasses really badly in after the first round. He's not too powerful either. And his striking in the first round is very active. He's very active on the feet. Very diverse striking as well. But the round 2 and 3, he always gets completely gassed. And I think that Bryce Mitchell, although people are talking about this fight, like Bryce is going to get submitted by another ninja choke or something like that. But it's very unlikely that he gets subbed twice in a row, especially since he knows he's going to have to work on that because Saeed's so good with his front chokes. I know people are talking about Saeed like he can front choke King Kong if he was in the cage with him, but I think that his front chokes, although very good, I think that they're going to be nullified by Bryce Mitchell this time. I think Bryce Mitchell knows that he can't just relentlessly shoot doubles and singles. I think he's going to work on the cage a lot. We've seen people put Saeed Nurmagomedov against the cage. We've seen people like Vinicius Oliveira be able to outmuscle him there. And Jonathan Martinez too. And neither of those guys I would call grapplers. The thing is, I think to beat Bryce Mitchell, you got to be able to outmuscle him, or you got to have that one-hitter quitter power. Round 2 and 3 in this fight, even though Bryce doesn't have the best cardio himself, he's going to be able to grind the fence work against Saeed. Saeed's going to become complacent with giving up those positions, and I don't think he's going to be able to work out of them very easily. As long as Bryce doesn't shoot a naked takedown and he works them from the clinch, I really see this being quite, not an easy fight, but I see it being a straightforward fight for him. I know Saeed's known for his front chokes, but Bryce is going to be working on that after getting submitted by a ninja choke by Gene Silva last time out. And I know you see these guys who are like sort of a specialist. Whenever they lose in their specialist, in their like whatever they specialize in, usually they double down on that because they know it's not a good look for them to get submitted as a grappler or knocked out as a striker. So they really work on those tools. So I think that Bryce will be able to nullify the front chokes and the tricky striking of Saeed Nurmagomedov and win a 29-28 decision. Moving on to the next one, I'm going to say Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. This is probably the hardest fight for me to predict right now. I'm basically predicting it right now. I've done tons of film study on both of them. I've watched all of their fights from both guys. And it's such a difficult prediction because I've always loved Krylov. I always thought that he was very underrated, that his grappling was fantastic. I always thought that he was a very difficult fighter in the striking, but after his last performance, I don't know what to think of him. He spent 2 years out of the cage, which can do something to anyone. Ring rust will be the best man out of anyone. And the thing is that he sprinted forward, falling over basically with his chin over his toes and got cleaned up by Reyes. But the thing is that I see a very good path to victory with the grappling for him. I think Guskov has shown a bit of weakness in the grappling, although the only time he's been submitted in the UFC was against Volkan Ozdemir, and that was after being rocked. I still think that he's going to be a little bit worse off in the grappling than Nikita Krylov. Nikita's shown to give problems to guys like Magomed Ankalaev, who are very good grapplers, and I think he's going to give some problems to Bogdan Guskov in this fight, but it's such a hard one to predict. I really think Krylov could win this one by decision or by submission, but I think I'm going to have to pick Bogdan Guskov just because it was only at UFC 314 that Nikita got smoked out cold, and I know that Bogdan's not as clean as Reyes, and I'm going to tear my hair out if Bogdan does get submitted or out-grappled by Krylov, because I really think Reyes is steps above Bogdan. I think his takedown defense, I think his grappling defense has always been very good for Reyes. And I think that he's a lot slicker on the feet, especially with that pullback left hand. But in saying all of that, Krylov should know about that pullback left hand. Like, what is stopping him from... Like, why was he charging head first into Reyes? That's my question. I know he's probably got some ring rust, but that's some terrible game planning there. And I can't convince myself that he's not going to come out there and do the exact same thing again. I'd be really sad to see the Krylov downfall. He's always been a fun fighter to watch, but I do pick Bogdan Guskov by a second round KO in this fight. It's a big shame. I love Krylov, but moving on to the next fight, we've got Asu Almabayev versus Jose Ochoa. If you saw the video I made when this fight got announced, I know you know how annoyed I was that Ochoa's coaches and team let him take the fight. But I can't ignore my pick for this one. I watched again. This is a fight that I did a ton of tape study on. And I'm going to have to be picking Jose Ochoa by decision. I watched back all of Asu's fights in the UFC and they're so unimpressive. At the time, they weren't bad wins. But when you look back on it, hindsight is 20/20. And we know that it's sort of just a bad look to have those performances, have a close one against Ode Osborne, have a close one against CJ Vergara, a close one against Jose Johnson or Mateus Nicolau. And the thing is that watching those fights, you see he needs the takedowns really badly on the feet. Otherwise, he's sort of a sitting duck to anyone with sort of a high level of striking. He's very inactive on the feet as well. He's not very powerful, especially with his punches. And just none of those wins aged well at all. They all look like bad wins. I know that Jose Ochoa's win over Cody Durden won't age well at all, but he looked more impressive in that fight than Asu looked in any of those Ode Osborne's or CJ Vergara performances combined. And the thing is that Asu outstruck all of those Ode Osborne's, the Mateusz Nicolaus, but it was not by that big of a margin. He wasn't separating himself like Jose Ochoa was able to do to Cody Durden. You saw in that fight, although Cody Durden was warring it back, that Jose Ochoa was the much slicker, much faster striker. He had the better counters out of the two. You could see that every single aspect of the game, Jose Ochoa was really beating Cody Durden in that fight. Whereas you don't see that in Asu fights. He never schools people. And when I saw the Manel Cap fight, although Manel Cap looked the best he's ever looked in his career, he literally didn't land anything of value on Cap. And although I don't think Ochoa is as good with the sprawl and brawl or as technical and fast of a striker, I think that you need effective striking to beat a guy like Ochoa. I think that you need to have... I think you would need to show at least a couple of sequences of success against Manel Cap. He needed to show some success against a fast twitch, fast and powerful striker. And Jose Ochoa is exactly that. I think the way this fight is going to go is that Asu's not going to be able to put any damage on Jose Ochoa, and he won't be able to set up his takedowns, and Ochoa is going to be able to sprawl and brawl all the takedowns, and Asu's not going to get enough damage off. He's going to not be able to set up the takedowns well enough. He's going to get sprawled on a lot, and I think that Ochoa is going to be able to win a damaged-based decision. Although I could see a robbery, though, we're in the Middle East, I still think that Ochoa is going to be able to win this by a decision. Moving on to the next fight, though, we've got Shariputdin Magomedov versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm going to be going Shara by decision. I feel like this is a pretty easy fight to predict. You can tell the UFC want Shara to build off any hype that Marc-Andre got from KOing Bruno Silva earlier this year. But this is a pretty good matchup for Shara. I think the one problem Mark will pose is he's very good in the clinch. He's very good at outworking you. We saw MVP was able to work some good offensive clinch against Shara Magomedov. But the thing is that the way that MVP got into the clinch was by explosive, quick blasting into the pocket and just like smothering him. Whereas Marc-Andre's not fast enough to do that. We all know that. Shara is a very fast striker. He got speed mogged by MVP, but that does not mean that Marc-Andre is, for now, a faster striker, which is definitely not the case. I think Marc-Andre is going to be able to hold him against the fence at different points, land some pitter-patter shots here and there. But Shara's footwork and his movement will be able to negate all of that. I think he's going to be able to minorly outpoint Mark. He's going to get held against the cage and outworked at points, but he'll still be able to put out more damage. Lots of leg kicks will land, lots of body kicks, and I think he's going to be able to work at range against Marc-Andre, winning a decision, maybe a 30-27 decision. Moving on to the next fight, we got Petr Yan versus Marcus McGhee. I'm going to be going with Petr Yan by decision. This is a hard pick, though. Marcus is very difficult over 3-rounders, and his boxing's very fast. He's very quick, twitch, muscle guy anyway. He's got very good defense, very explosive as well. And I think he's going to know that it's now or never. He's either going to be the prospect that actually makes it into the top 5, or he's going to be that guy that never makes it to quite the tip of the spear. This is his last opportunity, so he's going to go balls to the wall against Yan. And the thing is, Yan is kind of built for 5-rounders. You'll see mainly every fight he'll give away the first round. But I hope and I think the versatility of Petr Yan will get him the win in this fight. If he fights how he should shoot early, he should kick a lot, he should use all of his tools that he has, should use his spinning weapons. And I think he should try to bully Marcus McGhee out there, make him never get set in his stance, make him thinking about the takedowns, thinking about the Osotogari trip, thinking about the spinning wheel kick. He has to be thinking about that. I honestly think that this fight's going to look a bit like, not the actual fight itself, but the momentum of the fight, I think will look like Gaethje versus Fiziev, the first one. I think it's going to be a very even first round where Marcus McGhee sort of takes away the cake. He's able to throw the more flashy shots, the louder shots. But then in those second and third rounds, we see him slow down and we see Petr Yan use all of his weapons and sort of walk him down and break him. Because Marcus McGhee in those second and third rounds often, although he does throw a lot of strikes, he's sometimes on the back foot, and I think that's not a good space to be against Petr Yan. I think if Yan wants to win this one, he's going to have to string together long combinations and the combinations with kicks to distract Marcus McGhee from it. I do worry, though, that Marcus will be able to switch up on Petr Yan, pulling up a slightly different game plan than he's had on the past. If you see in his last few fights, he's doubled his significant strike numbers, and his takedown defense has historically been amazing. But I think that Petr Yan will be able to hold down the fort in this one. Marcus is a lot faster than Petr, but Petr's shown that he's been able to deal with these fast guys like a Song Yadong in the past, or a Sean O'Malley, even though it was a split decision loss. He wasn't outclassed at all in that fight. Many thought he won that fight. I think that in this fight, Marcus will be able to win the first round by speed mogging him. Maybe even getting taken down and sort of making it a close round like Song Yadong did. But in the second and third rounds, I think Young's going to be able to out-grapple. He's going to put together some nice, slick combination. His catch-and-shoot combinations, I don't think will work as well against Marcus McGhee, but I think he'll know that. I think he's going to slowly break him down, and he's going to try and slam him with body shots in those first two rounds, winning the fight in those second and third rounds, maybe teeing off on him in the third round, almost finishing him, making it to a decision. 29-28 to Petr Yan. I hope he holds down the fort in this one. Moving on to the main event of this fight, we've got Robert Whittaker versus Reiner de Ridder. Don't say it's just because I'm Australian, but it's a worrying fight for Bobby Knuckles, but I think he's got this one. RDR's got the style to win. He's a very, very physically imposing guy. He's a very tall person. He's very physical. He uses his weight well. Very good in the clinch as well. He's sticky in the clinch. Tough as nails as well. But I think that Rob struggles with physicality, but it's only when you've got the movement and footwork to come with it. People make the reference that RDR is very similar to DDP, who did get the TKO on Robert Whittaker. But I see similarities on the feet, and I see differences between them. I see the fact that Dricus's rumbly-bumbly style is definitely a striking first style. He's a high-level kickboxer, even if he doesn't look like it. Even if you don't think he's the most technically sound guy, he's always been a high-level kickboxer. RDR's not that guy. He's a high-level grappler, I will give him that. A lot of the stuff that is not technical from DDP works for him. You see DDP, he doesn't really get caught as much doing his bum rush or his looping overhands. They all work. Whereas RDR's weird tendencies, like the lifting the knee up and constantly throwing knees, we see him get caught a lot doing that. And we see him get caught a lot throwing naked punches out there without throwing them in combination. It's not like these things, these weird untechnical looking things that we would have said DDP before wouldn't have worked for him. DDP's untechnical strikes always actually worked. Like, they always landed. They always were able to finish opponents, whereas RDR's been caught with these awkward weapons. So I don't think that we can say that he's got the same style as DDP, because it doesn't really work on the feet for him as much. We see that it's using those weird weapons, it makes it easier for him to close distance and get takedowns. And he's got a very awkward, scrappy style, but he's not a finisher on the feet. He's not been like a one-punch KO guy. He's got very good knees, I will give him that, and he's got a mean clinch. But at range, kickboxing and his boxing doesn't work as well. And when boxing, he doesn't really win these exchanges. I think he might be able to bully Whittaker on the ground, but I think he needs his striking to get there, and I don't think he's going to be able to hit Whittaker with his jab or with his straight punches that easily. I think Whittaker's going to be the much faster the guy out of the two. And I think that Whittaker's going to be able to get up from bottom. He's not Bo Nickel. I know that Bo Nickel's a world-class wrestler, but Whittaker's been there and done that with all these guys. I don't think RDR is going to be able to snap Whittaker's jaw like Khamzat Chimaev was last time out. So, first two rounds of this fight, I think RDR is going to look very good. I think Bobby Knuckles is going to start off a little bit slower. I don't think he's going to look for the finish in those first 2 rounds, but I think he's going to try and tag him up. Lots of jabs, lots of leg kicks, lots of stomps. I think he's going to try and slow down RDR. And then round 3, 4, and 5, I think he's going to take over, putting an absolute beating and a whooping on RDR with the front kicks, with the jabs and the teeps. And I think he's going to be able to break RDR. Not finish him, but I think it's going to go to a decision in this one where Bobby Knuckles is able to outpoint him those last 3 rounds, maybe even the last 4 rounds. I think RDR's style is always compared to Dricus, but I don't see the similarities. I see the similarities in the grappling, but on the feet he gets caught so much. You'll remember the GM3 fight. GM3 was outstriking RDR on the feet, and the thing is that he looked decent in that fight, but he didn't look good on the feet. He looked good in the grappling, but he didn't look good at all on the feet. So I'm going to be picking Robert Whittaker by decision, by 48-47 decision. Let me know what you think of my predictions below. What do you think of the card as a whole as well? And as always, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.